Age of by 10 tricks point never. Age of by 10 Tricks Point Never is my favorite record. The exact album I listen to most frequently in any given period of time admittedly shifts around pretty much constantly, what with the amount of music being actively released and circulated these days. But I still find it endlessly refreshing and entertaining to revisit Age of quite frequently. On the topic of music and how we engage with it, I try to balance the convenience of streaming music with enjoying physical media, or more ethically sourced digitally mediated music formats like download cards bundled with physical media, or platforms like Bandcamp or WIP that tend to support artists more directly than streaming does. But when I'm not listening to physical media, I'm most regularly streaming music as a giant mashed up playlist of 30,000 something light songs on shuffle. However, that's more of an effort to be exposed to the widest sort of network of music that I can. You just can't beat the joy of discovering something that you truly resonate with. I will frequently add an artist's entire discography to my light songs if I hear something from them that I kinda dig. And that's just an attempt to keep growing that reservoir of pretty much mostly unheard tracks in my streaming services light song playlist. But despite my usage of streaming services and shuffled playlists, I still have a deep appreciation for the format of a long play album. As far as albums go, specifically records that are created with a genuine sense of intentionality and an identifiable thematic thrust, I've been continually thinking about Age of by 10 Tricks Point Never. Real name, Daniel Lopatin. I can confidently say that from around the spring of 2022 to now, winter, early spring 2026, Age of by OPN continually embodies my platonic ideal of a favorite record. A big reason why I've latched onto this LP for as long as I have is because it just clicked with me in a unique and unshakable way. It was so perplexing and different, I eventually became somewhat obsessed with the record. And I wanted to collect my feelings and various musings on the LP into some sort of document, or video, or essay. Some kind of a video essay thing. I've been wrestling with the urge to channel my interest in Age of into a creative project for years now. I've drafted countless outlines and prototype documents, but the finalization of any given work has always seemed to elude me. It is easy to get caught up in scope creep when the subject matter you're covering spans from the dawn of the Anthropocene to a far distant imagined post-human future. But a far distant imagined post-human future is the conceit of the meta-narrative of Age of, and its associated live shows or tour called Myriad. Myriad refers to both the actual live installation concerts as well as the conceptual lore of the album. All of the music you hear off of Age of and during the live shows are, as the concept goes, the generative results of the machinations of monolithic Sentinel Singularity AI beings. They exist at the end of the universe, and to entertain themselves, they endlessly replay the fragmented memory detritus of the now long extinct human race. So the scope of potential connections you could make to the conceptual narrative is far-reaching, to say the least. But I've decided to embrace the potential incompleteness that haunts any creative endeavor and just unapologetically record my various thoughts and conclusions. This is my attempt to arrange those jumbled thoughts and observations and unique syncretic idiosyncrasies. The time has come to render this gargantuan and pentagruelian work of electronica arcana into a hopefully enjoyably long-winded video essay. Before going on, I think it is worth pointing out that I am not at all versed in the technical aspects of music theory, nor am I classically trained in any shape, way, or form. While I make music, the bulk of what I know about music composition is the basic surface level functions of a couple of individual synthesizers and samplers and drum machines. And even in that realm, with the machines I own and use every day, there is a world of knowledge I'm still not privy to. But I am an avid collector of records, as well as a handful of cassettes and CDs. listening to music is just one of my biggest hobbies. My musical perspective, I guess you could say, is much less rooted in hard theory. I approach music analysis from a more media studies point of view. So the way I think about music is much more loose and conceptual than the way someone who is classically trained probably would. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that someone who has that musical background would have a lot more technical knowledge and know an entire lexicon of notation and theory. And I would love to hear someone who knows their stuff break down the record in that kind of way. But as far as music goes, I'm just some guy who loves records and making simple analog synth beats. And these are my weird little takes on my favorite weird little album. That's not at all to say I will shy away from talking about the music. I have quite a lot to say about the actual sonic composition of the record. It's just worth pointing out that whatever insights I may have to offer on any given work of music discussed going forward, it will be approached from a lens more heavily rooted in the methodology of something like art history, literary studies, film studies, and game criticism. In college, I studied and got my degree in game design, which at my old university was part of their interdisciplinary studies program. And even though Age of is a musical project, my education has equipped me with a perspective of media analysis and a toolkit of strategies when it comes to creative ideation and problem solving, which I have been very grateful for when I've been in the process of writing this video essay. It's oddly fitting that my degree classification was interdisciplinary, and the associated courses of stuff like interdisciplinary research, game writing and criticism, media studies, and art history all seem to have been a primer for this project's research process. It's also interesting that the terminology of cross-disciplinary endeavors cropped up quite a few times in my OPN interview reading I did as a part of research for the essay. Myriad, after all, to its core, was an interdisciplinary endeavor. Elements of the show with abstract panels for projections in front of swollen inflatable forms and sculptures hanging from the ceiling could adapt well to the environs of an art gallery. And certainly no aspect of Lopatten's output lacks the kind of expositional grounding and interdisciplinary connections that power many lesser bodies of work. Andy Battaglia for Art News. It feels good to make a multidisciplinary show because as a fan of music, I would hate to go to concerts all the time and feel like there's something that needs to be addressed. Daniel Lopatten for Line of Best Fit. I don't often consciously transfer influences, although in general this kind of interdisciplinary thinking makes sense to me. In all honesty, I'm not purely interested in film score composition in the traditional sense. It's more compelling for me to think about hybridizing some of the functional aspects of sound and film. Daniel Lopatten for Mose magazine. And in May, he will stage a cross-discipline concertscape at New York's Park Avenue Armory. Christopher R. Weingarten for Rolling Stone. But just to put it quite simply, this is a vibes-based approach to music analysis. Not at all one rooted in the mechanics of music theory, but I'm sure Age of could be wonderfully dissected and examined by someone with that musicological background. And even though the attitude and academic rigor of this essay is a bit more lax than a professional research paper, if I'm asserting something that can be potentially disputed or is of central importance to understanding One-O-Trix Point Never or Age of, I will do my best to provide some sort of functional list of citations. I want to make sure that the citation outline provided allows sources cited for this video essay to be easily retrievable by the viewer should they want to verify anything I say in their own time. Some of the claims and observations I make about the record might seem kind of abstract or outlandish, but when held up against Daniel Lopatten's own words on the record, my bizarre conclusions will hopefully seem to have some degree of subjective legitimacy, because in my opinion, they reflect Lopatten's own ideas and driving vision behind Age of and Myriad. I never want to be putting words in anyone's mouth or think that I can perfectly understand the intent behind any work of art, or reduce a person's entire life to a footnote. So whenever possible, I will include direct quotations from outside perspectives. Thoughtful usage of quotations will only serve to strengthen the rhetorical impact of what I have to say.